Good evening. I'd like to call to order the April 10th meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. We're starting tonight with some continued business. SureTech EV Power LLC's application for an EV charging station to be placed at 1460 Middlesex Street. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Doing all right. Last meeting we asked for a revision of the plans to include some compensation area. How's that coming along?
So the engineer is still working on the elevation plan. The structural engineer is still working on it.
Okay, that's what I figured. We hadn't seen anything from you. So I've been thinking since last week's meeting about how to separate this item from the rest of our conversations about any kind of fill that a builder would be looking to add in a flood zone that doesn't have anything at the elevation at which he's trying to put it. Basically, what we've done to eliminate houses being built on stilts. In this case, I don't think that the engineer is going to find any compensation area on that site, and we have the case where the applicant is trying to install the base of an EV charging station, and the posts. You'd think those guys would know. The posts for two posts for a canopy in the flood zone, and only 2 feet between the ground elevation and the top of the flood zone. I want to change my opinion about what we requested at last meeting, because a structure is defined as a building with both a roof and walls. To me, that should be our guidance for whether or not we're requesting a grading plan, which is an additional cost to the developer. And, in this case, I don't think that compensation is going to be found. I don't see any reason to not allow this to me seems de minimis, and I don't think that there's a workaround in the typical path that we have followed for this construction. So thinking that, not having the engineer's evidence, obviously, my opinion would be to recant our request and not follow our standard procedure under the premise that this is not a structure. Any thoughts?
I think we understood that there was probably no compensation on that particular parcel. I did think that the neighborhood was a consideration, and the fact that it's all commercial rather than residential for the most part, although there are a couple of short streets a little further up Middlesex. But the reason that I thought it was important to have such a chart is that sometimes these projects take longer than anticipated, the personnel on this particular board changes, and if we had a chart, even though we knew that perhaps that chart was not going to show any compensation, we would at least know the dimensions of the structure that they were constructing, so that we could look at, is the post that's holding it up, is it 6 by 6 inches, or is it 3 feet by 3 feet? In which case, that would make a difference in how much compensation would be required. And we perhaps wouldn't know that until they came in for a certificate of compliance. And that particular board at that time might say, well, what do the plans say? And we'd say, well, it's not on the plans. We don't know. So I thought that as a sort of a place marker or a paper trail, that would be why we would want to know the compensation figures, even if we voted after that to say that, well, we're going to allow this without the compensation. But I think the reasoning behind that would be that someone would potentially make the structure as less invasive as possible, even though they were hoping to get approved without the compensation. Whereas if we didn't have any solid figures written down, people could perhaps do what they pleased and come back in later and say, well, I followed the plans, or it wasn't on the plans, or you didn't say that, or whatever. That was the reason I wanted it, not that it would show the compensation, but that it would show what the structure should look like when it's completed.
So I would argue that there's details for that all in the package. There's dimensions of the footings, and there's post sizes, and there's only 2 of them, and so we could pretty easily figure out the amount of fill that is.
Well, I'm not even sure that that particular plan listed the floodplain elevation at that location. I don't recall seeing that on the plan. That was another thing that I wanted added. Without that,
I remember that one coming up. That's reasonable. So, even if we are to request a chart, the addition of a chart and a floodplain elevation, that's still considerably less. That's not really asking the engineer for more work. That's not like requesting a grading sheet.
right. We didn't ask for grading. I think we had, did we have a couple of benchmarks perhaps shown on, or
Yeah,
spot
the-
elevations?
Yeah, the drawing pretty much shows it. the
So, I mean,
structural
that,
drawing.
in this particular case, it's completely asphalted.
Yeah.
And I don't think those elevations are gonna change. I think that isn't, and that's why I think this should not be an overall, blanket statement, is that each site needs to be looked at individually. And we can look at it with the proper thoughts that you have, that you're trying to protect the engineer from extra work, but we don't have to require extra work to just cover ourselves and cover, protecting the environment and the neighbors that might be nearby.
I'm pretty sure we left last meeting with the request that more grading was shown in order to see if that compensation was possible. That said, I don't want to require it, and I don't think that we should. I don't think that we should be considering. There has to be a point at which it's de minimis flood storage. And I agree that a structure there's no way for a structure like a house to meet that threshold. But I think that there's no negative impact in this case when we're talking about installing a solar charging station.
Okay, but you just said in this case, and I think that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that we still need to look at things case by case and not say, if it's not a structure, we're not going to require this, or if it's this, we're not going to require that. For instance, we've had many conversations on this board about backyard storage sheds and construction trailers in the floodplain, that those things are perhaps movable and not real structures, but they also are taking up valuable space in a floodplain and could also be a danger and tear loose and float away and hit objects and cause all kinds of damage. So I think, if you're trying to keep from having to look at certain cases carefully, I don't think that's the right way to go. I don't think we need a policy on structures versus non-structures. I
Yeah.
think we should continue to look at each case on its merits.
Yeah, I do think that the necessity of making a definition changes a lot if we're not requesting additional grading, which is what I thought you had pushed for last meeting. So,
No, I never mentioned grading. That's up to the engineer. If they think that it's necessary to find the compensation, they can see which way the wind is blowing as we're having our discussions here. If we feel it's a really important issue on that particular parcel, and they feel they can compensate, then certainly they're welcome to do the grading. But I didn't ask them to do grading to find compensation.
you can't find you can't create compensation without understanding the grading.
Well,
That's the crux of
I
what
think
I
we
was
both, I think we both know that they couldn't find compensation on this particular lot. It was well underwater 10, 15 years ago.
Okay. So, anybody else?
So I kind of agree with Brad where it's a totally different structure than what we've dealt with in the past. And I think that kind of is a case-by-case basis. I'm not saying every structure that we're going to look at is going to be like that. But with how much the footings are and how little they are, I kind of look at this as a totally, as a project not really affecting, the flood storage and the area it's in, especially where it's on Middlesex Street, in that area of Middlesex Street in particular, where it's so built up. I'm still, what were we looking for? Are we looking just for the floodplain and what the height is, or
So,
because I don't think we need a grading, because I don't think they're going to find the compensatory storage.
yeah, I mean, the conservation agents have provided the engineer with a sample table.
With that.
And I think that probably the elevation of the floodplain and that table could be added administratively if we know that we're
Yeah.
not gonna find compensation
just-
anyway.
That could
And
be
just-
done on the
We can
back
put them on the
end.
plan. Cause there's no, I don't know what else is, what else we would require upon seeing that table. I mean, I can calculate it right now. So if he would add it to the,
Put that as a condition.
yeah. No worries, all good. It sounds like there's no, dispute about adding it administratively at
No.
both the table and the floodplain elevation.
No, it's something that comes in later, like approve the project, and then as a caveat of the project, have that come in.
It would be a condition of approval
Yeah.
that the plan is revised
Yep.
and added to the,
Yeah, agree with that.
to the plan.
Agreement with that. So I'll make a motion to grant this project a -3 designation, with the caveat that, say that again, Commissioner?
Need to close the public hearing.
Oh,
Nobody wants to speak.
it's an RDA. It's an RDA.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
That the
Addition of the compensation table, the compensatory flood storage calculation table and the floodplain elevation.
Yep, with the caveat that the compensatory storage table is added and the flood storage and the flood elevation. Apologies.
Motion made, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. So a -3 determination means that you have, we've decided this is in our area of jurisdiction, but it has de minimis impact to the flood zone, and and that resource area, so you are approved for your project. Thanks for coming back in.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, another continued item. We have an enforcement order issued to Dang of 258 Varnum Ave. An enforcement order due to debris dumping within the 100-year floodplain. At the last meeting, we asked for an update because we kind of lost sight of where this stood. We were provided some photos that showed that it is not better and maybe worse. Anything else since then? Any contact?
Yes, so staff sent the property a letter telling them to attend this meeting, and they are not here. We haven't had actual direct contact with the property owner.
Has it been sent in any other languages than English?
No.
Did it get mailed or hand delivered?
It was mailed to the legal address of the owner, which is
Not
what
here.
the law requires. And we don't have the form in any other languages. It's an enforcement order form.
So,
And I'll add that I checked in with code enforcement staff, and they have been fining this property regularly for the health code violations that the debris constitutes. And the property owner has been unresponsive, so it seems like it's just an unresponsive property owner in general.
does it look like anybody's living there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I
your
think
neighborhood.
one of the issues with this property is that although the front may have code violations, the back, the pictures we saw, and I've seen it firsthand as well, seems to be debris that's been there for a long time. And I know this house, not sure of the year it was sold, but within the last 5 years, it was used as a boys' group home. And now it's apparently a family that's bought it. But the debris in the rear that we're issuing the violation for appears to have been there a long, long time. And I feel that this particular present homeowner probably doesn't know what we're talking about. He probably wasn't responsible for what's in the rear, although he is definitely responsible for the condition of the house and the driveway area in the front. So I don't know if you have if we have some kind of a other language speaker that we could send to explain the situation to them.
I forgot to mention that the code enforcement notices are translated into other, like, many different languages, so it's likely that the notice that has been sent to the property owner was in a language that they understand. And enforcement has been ongoing, so I'm not sure there's much else we can do in terms of language assistance. We just don't have the city itself doesn't have, like, language services readily available. We have to contract them out.
Knowing that they're already being fined,
Yeah.
and
Not
there's
paying.
other departments on this, is kind of enough for me. I don't.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I don't, and especially where they probably don't understand what they'd even be being fined for, as we haven't, when people are
Yeah.
unresponsive, I hesitate to
Who
fine
knows?
them when they don't even know what they're going to be fined for, so.
So I guess our options are to take action and get it cleaned up for them, or to do nothing and allow other departments to deal with this.
Perhaps we could make the other departments aware of the wetland violation so that they, if there is a cleanup coming, they could include that in the total cleanup and put that on their checklist, their check-off list.
Yeah, I can certainly communicate that to other departments.
Do
But
we know?
I can't dictate what work they do, so I can tell them, but that's the best I can do.
Do we know if this is a landlord situation or does the property owner live there?
It's not possible for me to tell. I don't know that we can tell.
Because we've had issues with
Right.
landlords that live like 3,000 miles away, and
Right.
they keep getting these fines, and
The owner's address is the same as this address. But that, they could be in Florida, we don't know.
All right. So, it sounds like we
So we
just,
just leave it open?
yeah, we just let it, just take it off the agenda, and it just stays ratified, and, that's that, I guess.
we'll go.
Do we need to continue it for that, or just? you
It's
just
not a
pull it off?
public hearing, so you don't need to continue it.
Okay.
Maybe at a further date, the commission could direct staff to try to contact the owner again.
Okay.
We could put it on a future agenda in 6 months or something, if you would like to do that. Don't know that it's likely that they'll respond, but yeah, choices I think are rescind enforcement order, keep it open and do nothing, or issue direct staff or, authorized staff, I guess, maybe not authorized staff, but recommend that staff issue fines under the local wetlands ordinance. Those are, I guess, the three different options that the commission has moving forward.
Yeah, so do we want to just table it for a certain amount of time? 6 months, like I think France?
Yeah, sure. If you could put this on the agenda again in 6 months with,
Or the end of the summer or something?
yeah, with the knowledge of whether or not those fines have gone heeded, if they're continuing by inspectional services. All right. Anybody else? Then moving on, we have a new business item, a notice of intent. Atlantica Oliver 2, 240 Industrial Ave LLC, 125 High Street, Suite 220, Boston, Mass. This is DEP file number 2060829 for project location at 240 Industrial Ave. The applicant is seeking to expand and reconfigure a parking area within the 100-foot buffer zone of River Meadow Brook. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Mike Shunta. I'm with Oliver Street Capital, who is the owner and applicant for the proposed project that we have tonight. We did bring a copy of the drawings that were included in the NOI for tonight's presentation. So when we talk through what we are proposing to do, we'll have the opportunity to have a visual here so we can look at it while we're describing the conditions and the proposed use. Oliver Street Capital is the owner of 240 Industrial Ave. We also own the adjacent site next door, 160 Industrial Ave, which we did recently complete an interior build out for Tire Hub, and they are in the facility next door. This project is currently an industrial warehouse. It is leased to a tenant that is going to be vacating in the near future. And what we are currently working on is proposing a very impactful and thoughtful upgrade to the existing facility, both in the site conditions and with some select building components. We want to choose some upgrades that'll make that site more functional and also flexible for the future tenant. All the improvements that we are proposing are pretty much within the existing limits of the site, but we're looking to improve certain areas. And I have the civil engineer with me tonight that'll get into a lot more detail on what those improvements have and why we see those as a benefit. So with me tonight is the civil engineer and is Alan Major, who is the civil engineer and landscape architect for the project. I have Jared Grondin and Bob Clark. So Jared, if you want to give a summary.
My name is Jared Grondin with Allen & Major Associates Engineer for the project. So So this is an existing 167,000 square foot building to remain.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you stay at the microphone?
Yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
an existing 167,000 square foot building to remain. The client is doing facade improvements to make the building more aesthetically pleasing. The limit of the work that we're doing, so this is the delineation flagged by Goddard Consulting, wetland environmental scientist. So this is River Meadowbrook with a little bit of BVW for these flags, the A series, and then, and then the brook is the HW series. So in Lowell, the riverfront area is going to be the 25-foot offset from that. That's the jurisdiction. We aren't touching anything within that area. And then they have the 50-foot wetland setback and then the 100-foot buffer. So the work that we're proposing, it's a little bit within the 50-foot. So the existing building is within the 50-foot setback to date. We're adding another form of egress. There is an existing door back here that is to remain and get repurposed. So we have a stone dust walkway and concrete pad as another form of egress to the building. The majority of the work that we're proposing, there's an existing overhead loading door here with 2 loading docks that are depressed 4 feet to the plan left. So we're gonna propose a precast concrete retaining wall and drop the elevation of the existing overhead door to accommodate 2 additional loading docks to help the functionality in a future tenant for the project. There is no existing treatment to date, so we are adding a water quality unit to help with the sediment and runoff pollutants. This is going to be a truck traffic area. We're proposing pavement as well, so there's gravel out here to date where these pollutants can percolate through the soil and evidently get into the groundwater. So paving this area, we're going to route the stormwater to this water quality unit that will treat prior to the discharge to the river. We're maintaining the existing outlet to the river as well. I'll open it up to questions if there's any.
I spend a lot of time on that path that hopefully will be paved by the city sometime this summer. My first request is kind of unrelated to your construction, but I was hoping that if the city doesn't do it during their project, that path could be stoned off. Put some boulders in the way so that trucks can't come down the road to the west side of the building and enter. You guys familiar? You know what path I'm talking about? The connector trail that goes from Target to Jarvis. Yeah. I mean, I don't really have any problems with your proposal. It follows what you should do here. Can you tell me about the tree removal
Yeah, so I mean, we've done a little bit of research out here. A lot of it's just dense vegetation and brush. We don't anticipate really any tree removal to date. We don't know until we get out there necessarily, but I mean, it looks all overgrown, and I mean, we're going to clean it up, loam and seed it. We've got a very robust landscaping plan to compensate. Just to, I mean, we're going to really beautify the site from its existing condition. So as you can see here, I mean, we're adding retention areas. We're providing stormwater treatment that doesn't exist on site to date. We're going to protect the resource and try to treat as much runoff as we can that's not provided to date. This has been filed with the DEP. We're going through a full site plan approval process as well. We think that this is a very big improvement over the site's existing condition, and it's going to protect the resources to the maximum extent practicable. So.
I know that so you're talking about that low shrub growth. I know that most of the plants out there along the river are invasive, and anything that you cut back that isn't treated, diligently will just end up growing back. Is there a way to, well, I see you've got it marked as a snow storage area. Is there any requirement that if there was to be a tree in that location that it doesn't come down? Can you still use snow storage around?
Yeah, definitely. And I think we can modify any grades out here to accommodate any existing trees that weren't picked up on our original survey. But from what we know, to our current understanding, that we're not gonna drastically impact any existing trees out there.
Okay. Anybody else?
I didn't want to start tramping through the tree line out there, but, it looked to be fairly healthy, and you said you weren't touching within 25 feet of the river, is that correct?
That is correct.
What I would like to know is if there is some kind of a fence there between, perhaps not a property line fence, but between the river and the back of your parking lot or the back of your building.
There's there's no existing fence out there. We do have a pretty elaborate erosion control plan. We're going to put out tubular sediment barriers and insert silt sacks in the catch basins to protect all the outfalls and resources in the area throughout construction.
Well, I was thinking, at the moment, as you know, there's a lot of trash back there. And I was thinking perhaps a fence of any height, like a chain link type fence, would prevent trash from blowing further in towards the river should it, get loose somehow in the open areas of the property in the future. And I would think that would make it easier for you to keep it cleaned up as well. It requires a big cleanup there. I know it's probably not the property owner's, the result of anything the property owner's done, but it looks like people are taking advantage of the vacancy to dump things back there.
Mike, do you want to speak upon that?
I was just hoping that there was some way to keep that from occurring in the future if that's become an attractive spot to get rid of things or to just let things fly.
So is the concern primarily along this back corner?
In the back, yeah.
So I think we could propose, if the commission thinks this is acceptable, is a 6-foot chain link fence.
That'd be more than adequate, I would think.
And I just want to make sure, so we have a building egress here that we'd have to maintain open, so I would propose it roughly on the building corner, the loading dock wall here. Probably I don't want to impact the trees, but approximately 10 feet off the pavement area and then run it to the walk path.
Yeah, certainly that, it seems to me that would help the situation going forward. I know you're going to do a big cleanup as you're working on this property, but sometimes if there's not a lot of activity in the rear areas in a night, and I know
Yeah.
the whole lot isn't fenced, so
Yeah.
you can't really keep people out of that parking area unless you do plan to put up some kind of a fence.
Some
all around.
commissions don't prefer fences go all the way to the ground, but it sounds like we would prefer this to go all the way to the ground, so any wind-blown debris would get
Yeah,
caught at the fence. So, yeah, I'd be fine to propose a 6-foot chain link fence, and we can really follow the edge of the walk here and run it from the edge of the walk to the corner of our property. We won't be able to probably go all the way to the walk. We could just go to our property line, but I would
yeah,
be fine.
that was mostly the worst area, I'd say. And it could be blowing in off the street, I don't know, a lot of that stuff. It's hard to say where it's coming from.
I have a couple concerns. When a fence is put not on a property line, it makes it harder to request that the owner or expect that the owner clean up the area behind the fence. And in this case, we can't put the fence on the property line because we're inside of the, river or in the setback, certainly. I also don't see a way to keep people from dumping things behind it, which makes it harder to get stuff out of there. Because then you got to walk it all the way back around the fence, or they chuck it over the fence or something. I don't know that it really. I mean, it would save some of the small blown trash, but if dumping is the problem, then it's not. It doesn't really help. It just makes it harder to get the crap out of there.
It's true.
Trash man.
Says the we were out there this weekend,
Okay.
picking up trash along that trail.
I also
Yeah,
think
I can see that point of view as well, Brad.
Yeah.
Perhaps save the fence until after the project is done and then see if it continues to be a problem. I think it's probably, the property just needs to be more used in order to.
I think that's a
Get
huge,
people to take care
I
of it.
think when the property is finished and redone, I don't think trash from that property will be as much of a concern as probably from the trail or other places where that trash might be coming from.
We're really hoping that the paving of this trail increases the activity of this area in general. That combined with reviving this building, which has been, looking vacant as long as I've known it, which isn't that long. It'll be nice to have some new construction, some new activity, and some more people in the area that will keep the ones most likely to dump in the middle of the night kind of away.
And one item too that will hopefully address some of those concerns is we do have a new site lighting plan with wall packs and light poles. So just illuminating the site, illuminating this back corner of what today is really vacant and
Yeah.
quiet.
Yeah, sure.
Just the illumination factor, I think, should help quite a bit with.
Definitely.
that
No,
concern.
Brad, the day I went to see the site itself, there was actually young kids on motorbikes, teenagers, and they were whipping through your property back into that trail.
Plowing right down the
And the
trail.
trail was heavily littered. So they're coming through your property to the trail. I don't know,
Yeah. I mean, there's
these
no.
kids, I'm sure, are contributing to the litter.
yeah. I mean, like Mike said, once this is illuminated and more structured, and I mean, it's gonna be a nice looking product at the end of the day. And I think that a lot more people will start to sort of, in a way, respect their property more after it's developed.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to
this
keep
extent.
the scooter mafia from going between the boulders, but that's your problem as a landowner.
I mean, I think that this is an improvement on the site, like totally, and I think the plan is well written. It's nice to get a comprehensive plan in front of us with as much detail as you all put into it. So I see really nothing wrong with the project.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else from the commission before we open it up to the public? How does this, I forget how this works. I always forget how this works. Do we need to open the public hearing?
No, I think you just
Yes.
just asked if anybody wants to
Yeah,
talk.
okay. Is there anybody here that would like to speak about this Anyone from the public? Nobody online? Nobody online? All right, so a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Any additional comments about the plan? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to issue a standard City of Lowell conditions for this project.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right,
Thank you.
looking forward. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you.
No problem.
One more item, the 327 meeting minutes. Any comments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yeah. Sure, go ahead.
Fran, I spoke with Brad before the meeting about this particular issue. This is other business. It was brought to my attention recently that the people have expressed that the price of requesting an RDA on a property has increased to the point where a single family landowner perhaps might find this more expense than they want to get involved with, and that might encourage people to violate rather than ask permission for simple projects like putting up fences or taking down trees within the buffer zone of a wetland or things like that. When we were talking about fees some years ago, I'm not sure if any of our members were on the board at that time, we deliberately kept the fee for filing for an RDA low. I believe, is it still $25 for an RDA?
RDA's, the local fee is $50, and it's been that since I've been here in 2019. So,
We deliberately kept that low, but now people are finding out that the ad to publish this, which I believe is a requirement of the Wetlands Protection Act, is costing hundreds of dollars. So I know newspapers charge by the inch, column inch, and I'm wondering if we can't ask them to do it for less, probably, but if we could perhaps consolidate that ad. It's very artistically drawn right now, but it's set up like a commercial ad rather than a notice. If we, it has, the date on one line, the time on the next, the place on the next, with a lot of white space on each line. And each space costs money. So I'm wondering if that could be redesigned or consolidated somehow so that we could perhaps, instead of taking up 5 or 6 column inches, it would take up 2 or 3, and that would make a big difference in the price that would be charged for that particular publication. It would still be published. It would, somebody bothered to read it, all the information would still be there. But, it wouldn't be such a burden to a small homeowner that had a small project.
that's definitely a good point. Something that we can bring up. As you know, we don't have any control over the ads. We can reach out to them and see if we can do something about it. My understanding was that they calculate it based on the number of characters, not the space. So the characters, we do really keep it as tight as we can in terms of we're not verbose in the ads. They contain the minimum amount of information that they need to. But I can reach out to the Sun and see, or it's not even the Lowell Sun, it's like a conglomerate, but I can reach out and see if they have any ideas as to how we could shorten the ads given how expensive they are, which
Yeah,
I
since-
totally recognize that they are expensive.
Since they're a conglomerate,
Yeah,
they should probably throw us a bone.
for sure. Yeah, it's not even the Lowell Sun, it's like
Yeah.
this random media company that manages the Lowell Sun, so I will definitely reach out, but I can't make any promises, unfortunately, because it's out of our control, and I don't know that they'll be responsive, but I will try my damnedest.
Okay.
I mean, it's a good point that maybe we should even talk to our state legislature about what benefit notice in the newspaper even has anymore, because nobody's reading the thing. You know,
That's
there's
a
got to
good
be
point.
a better way to do this, and taking that requirement out might be part of the answer. I mean, there should be public notice somehow, but there's got to be a better method. Yeah, than paying to print it in a hard copy newspaper. I mean, these times are dying, and we all know it. So, I'll start with Vanna.
Okay, well, thanks for looking into that, Fran.
Anybody else?
No.
Final words?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Aye.
Have a good night.